Let's give our attention to our candidates, and this is an opportunity to hear from them about their views on these issues. So we will start. We're going to have to do a lot of passing microphones around. I just wanted to quickly mention Joanne has corrected her name plate there. It's Joanne Sullivan is the last name. Okay, and so we'll have one question will be posed, and we'll kind of give everybody an opportunity to answer that question, 1 minute each. Starting with Joanne, why should a voter whose number one issue is climate change give you one of their 3 votes?
Thank you for your time, and nice meeting you, and thank you all for coming. So I am Joanne Sullivan. My husband is Cantor, so it's Sullivan space Cantor. Unfortunately, he passed 10 years ago. We have 3 beautiful kids. We live in Wollaston. Why should people vote for me? Because I understand the issues at hand, and I will be diligent in helping repair and resolve issues effectively and efficiently. It is important as a resident and counselor to be actively involved in all matters, and as a leader in all arenas, it is our job to listen to people, look for ways to help resolve matters, and work as a team in our great Quincy. And because when we work together, always works better and builds a good, stronger, happier, healthy community to live in, visit, and enjoy here always. A few weeks ago, I went into the Quincy bus building, and I asked them to put a new fleet in, and the superintendent said he will get that handled, and I will follow up with that next week. I also have a new program I proposed to the mayor. It's called Safe and Sound Streets Programs to install slow speed humps and cut through streets. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Noel DeBona here. I want to thank QCAN for having us here tonight. We talked a little bit earlier about the electric fleet resolution. That was actually passed by a 9-0 vote back in May of 2017, and was co-sponsored by myself, Nina Liang, and Joe Finn. The 3 at-large councils working together based on a resolution coming from this QCAN and David and the crew about doing and initiating it. Joe Finn, Nina, and I sat down together and we initiated it. So we worked a little bit differently, but we like to try to work together, and I like to work with my colleagues as well. David, over the summer, came in for office hours, and we talked about the handling the food waste, the plastic ban, plastic bag ban. On Monday's agenda is going to be an open forum, an open hearing on whether you are for it or against it. So I would like to see everybody come in at 7 o'clock. We're working towards, and I will listen to anyone. Anybody gets a seat at my table to listen to your opinions and your concerns. And I weigh it all together, and I come back and I say a lot of this at the city council level. So I've been your voice. I will continue to be a voice, and that's why I'm asking for one of your 3 votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just want to start by saying thank you to everyone here at QCAN, all the moderators, everyone that hosted it, and to the audience for joining us here tonight. My name's Nina Liang, and I'm excited to run for re-election as one of your at-large city councilors. I'm certainly not the new kid on the block anymore, but it has not stopped me from ever being your voice and fighting for your issues. I've had the honor over the last 2 terms as your counselor, introducing issues that are important to you, working with members at QCAN and residents here in the city to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward to address the issues that are in front of us right now. I've also had the honor of being endorsed recently by the Environmental League of Massachusetts, and I'm very excited to work with them and see what they're doing statewide with the work that they're doing with municipalities across the state, and bringing that back here to see what it is that we can do to affect change more immediately. You heard from some of the candidates earlier and some of the elected officials as well that we are making strides. However, this does have to be a top priority, and I'm looking forward to making sure that I'm working with all of you to make sure it's a top priority for us as well. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Mahoney, and I'm a candidate for re-election. I'm currently your council at Chair in Quincy. I want to thank QCAN as well for hosting this evening, and all of you for coming out on a very windy, rainy / sunny day. It was kind of strange here in Quincy today. I want to start by saying that I'm an advocate for this type of for climate control and greenhouse, making sure that we're taking care of our environment. But it does start from the top down. It does have to be something that the mayor has to institute. As much as we do on the city council, we can't force certain things to happen, but we can actually expose the things that are not happening. And that's what I like to try to say that I do on the council is I don't just ask questions. I make sure we're getting the right answers back. And if we're not moving forward, I try to say no to make sure that we're making the plans to go forward. When it comes to electric cars, we don't have the charging stations, and we can't wait 3 years or 6 years or 10 years. We need to start doing these things now, and we need to push our government to do that. The other thing we have to do is we have to look around to other communities and what they're doing. Somerville has a great program on their website, so does Cambridge, and a lot of other communities too. And there's the mayor's action committees that they go around and they all collaborate together to share ideas. These are the things that we can do now, and we can work together to make sure that we're actually affecting change here in Quincy that's positive for our environment and positive for our future. Thank you.
Hi, hi. Good evening. My name's Frank Rubino. I'm a first-time candidate for councilor at large. I want to thank QCAN for hosting us tonight, and I want to thank all of you for coming out. I'm 34 years old, and oftentimes I think, well, what is the world going to look like 50 years from now when I'm in my 80s and I'm hopefully still alive? And you know, we need to do everything we can here in Quincy to make a difference when it comes to the environment and climate change. I love the outdoors. I love hiking, kayaking, and I want to see rivers, lakes, streams, mountains. I want to see them protected because you know they're beautiful. The Blue Hills area is a perfect example. I've been involved with QCAN in the past. I was a volunteer with the Solarize Quincy initiative. That was a great project. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. For the next question, we'll start with Noel, and I guess go around in a circle again. This has a little bit of an intro to it. Last month, Greta Thunberg told Congress, quote, "I don't want you to listen to me. I want you to listen to the scientists. I want you to unite behind science. And then I want you to take real action," end quote. In a nutshell, the findings of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, that is, the scientists, are that the Earth is warming, it is caused by human activity, we must reduce the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and we are running out of time to limit catastrophic warming. Do you accept the findings of the scientists?
A lot of people in here tonight are specialists in this area, and I've talked about this in the past at our last candidate night 2 years ago. I would like to get all of you that are more in depth with this information at the table, Quincy QCAN, as well as these scientists. So yes, I do. Look at what's happening tonight outside. Is it caused from climate change? I would think so. Look at the catastrophic events that have happened throughout the world today, with the tsunamis, with our flooding that we just had, the 100-year storm. So I would like to have maybe a commission based on people like yourself to get together here in Quincy, not only your organization, but to give you a seat at the table at our city council level, at our governmental level, and we can work together because you know more information than myself. And you teach me what I need to legislate, what I need to speak about at the city council level. These are real issues that are happening across the world today, and they cannot be ignored. So the question is, yes, I do.
Yes, I absolutely do accept them. You know, watching her when she was on TV and when her photo was all over the news, it was really jarring for me. And I'm just going to take a second. I know I don't have much time, but my partner has 3 young kids. And we're a very active, very political, little family, and we watch debates, and we make sure that they're up to date with what's going on. In the last 6 months, every time that there's a question about climate change on TV, the oldest needs to walk out of the room. And it's not because he's pouting, it's not because he's being dramatic, it's because he physically cannot stay in the room watching these presidential candidates talk about climate change. And that is something that sticks with me every single day. we have taken steps here in the city. It is not enough. We need to continue to do more. We need to listen to folks like this 13-year-old who can't stay in the room and watch this debate. We need to listen to the concerns that they have because this is their future. And the decisions we're making here in Quincy doesn't just impact Quincy. It impacts the entire world. It starts here with us, and we should be the leaders on these kinds of issues. We should listen to these scientists. We should look at the information they have, and we should make decisive decisions here in the city and be a leader for other municipalities across the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I absolutely agree. And you do not have to be a scientist to actually recognize the things that are happening. Some of it is man-made right here in Quincy when we allow certain buildings to happen and we say that we're going to rezone flooding areas or we're going to rebuild them. Well, the problem is that we're building up every single section of our city, and when we do that, we have no place to put the water. So we have to take some responsibility as well. But I can say the same thing. I have 3 children, and we all actually work together in our home. My oldest 2 came back from school, and we no longer use plastic Ziploc bags. We have recyclable bags, and we have recyclable. We pretty much use everything that's recyclable in the house, and it's because of them being activists. I think this is something that's going to change when it comes from younger people up. Not that older people don't understand what the issues are, but I can tell you that my 93-year-old father would be probably the one that would come out and say that he wants to keep his plastic bags, and he threatens me to about voting for me. But that's just because he's 93. But it's okay because we can have differences. It's about educating them. But that he absolutely does agree that there is something going on with global warming, and we have to do something and start working together. So I'll convince him about the plastic bags. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I do believe in climate change. I believe it's a real thing, and I think the nor'easter from March of 2018 is perfect evidence that it's a real thing and that it's impacting us here in Quincy. I think that, and by the way, to anyone who does not believe in climate change, I think we should make the argument that don't you still like clean air, clean water, the beauty of nature, things of that nature? I walk around Quincy, I walk along a beach, and even along sidewalks, and I always see empty alcohol nips on the ground. And I think we should explore a ban on not just on plastic shopping bags, but possibly on alcohol nips as well, because they end up everywhere. You see them on beaches, along sidewalks. Thank you.
So, well, first, I would meet with your QCAN committee, because I haven't done that yet. And thank you for your dedication and time and wealth of information that I will be learning about. And go over your master plan, and then I would ask what you've looked into and what works well and what doesn't work well. I would also ask you, do you have any new suggestions? And based on all this information, then I would meet with other city folk and experts and get their take and suggestions and information. Then I would meet with the scientists that she spoke about to help out and get one universal plan here and propose it to the mayor.
Okay, for the next question, we'll go first to Nina. It's said that effective leadership includes leading by example. In this spirit, we'd like to know if you've had a residential energy audit, and if so, what concrete steps have you taken as a result?
Thank you. I have not had a residential audit yet. I am working with the folks in my family to make sure that this is a top priority for us. First and foremost, there's a program out right now to do some tree planting across the city, and this is something that we're taking first steps with. After we move forward with that, I'd love to move forward with the residential audit and see what it is that we can do to reduce emissions for the homes across my families. We all live in this city. We all contribute to the footprint that we're leaving here. So whether it's changing our vehicles over to hybrid vehicles, whether it's going and enacting composting, we do that in the restaurants we own. We should do that on their homes as well. So we're looking at that. And chairing the committee that is going to hopefully ban plastic bags once we have community input this coming Monday. that's something we're going to also enact in our home. And so I think, we've talked about it here tonight, and I think we absolutely should be leading by example. And so I'm taking steps myself, and I do know that, it takes a team to make sure that this impact really resonates outside from yourself. So thank you.
Thank you. So it was a while ago that we had the energy efficiency test at our house, and there's things such as insulation and our water use, our utilities that we use gas, and we also made sure that our water use was how we use our water use. Our toilets are our low-use water, and our washer and fryer, all of those things, in our dishwasher, the things that we have that are amenities into our home, we made sure that they were efficient when we were purchasing them as well. The other things that we do, of course, is we don't need unlike my dad who wants to keep his plastic bags, we use our recycle bags everywhere we go. We try not to use the bags when we go. That was something we've been doing for a really long time. I remember when I was traveling to visit my family back in Ireland, they didn't use, you had to pay for your bags way before we were hip and doing that in Massachusetts or even in the United States. The European countries always had you use cloth bags and carried them like that. But we've also been doing some of the smaller things in the house, like I said, which is recyclable Ziploc bags and making sure that we're using things that the smallest of efforts are the things that make the biggest difference. Our water bottles, our teacups, everything is reusable in our home. It becomes very competitive, though, as to who's going to be taking what cup in the morning, because we all have our favorites. And my youngest daughter likes to buy more of them, so I tend to get the ones that have all the stickers and then also have dents and bangs on them, because they all work fine, even with dents and bangs. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad this topic came up because, yes, I did have a Mass Save home energy assessment at my home back. I did it back in the spring, actually. I own a two-family house in Quincy Point, and I was very happy with the Mass Save program. It's an excellent program. I ended up converting from oil to natural gas heat, and the house has two furnaces because it's a two-family, and I converted both to ultra-high efficiency furnaces, and I was able to take advantage of all of the rebates and the incentives. And it kind of got me thinking, I wonder how many houses in Quincy have had a Mass Save home energy assessment versus how many have not. And what can we do to improve that ratio? Maybe we can, similar to the Solarize Quincy initiative from a few years ago when we tried to put solar panels on as many houses, maybe we can start a project where we try to have as many Quincy houses as we can undergo the Mass Save home energy assessment. Thank you.
So yes, we did an energy efficient audit of the whole house, and when we bought the house in 2014, the first thing we did was, which is on Fennell Street in Wollaston. So the first thing we did before moving into the home was to convert the oil system to gas. The oil system was from 1964, and so that really helped a lot. The energy efficient audit showed that the home was in very good condition and energy efficient. So yeah, any help or suggestions, I always look into it for a better, way of handling things. Thank you.
Yes, I did have one. I had a two-family, actually on Lawn Ave, which is a street over from Witten, that we did eight years ago. And then my family increased, and we had to buy bigger bedrooms, so we moved to Marymount in April of 2014. While we were doing our Mass Save, the carbon monoxides, the smoke detectors the fire department does, we also bundled that in with bringing over energy efficient, Energy Star rebates on doing the kitchen over. We did the dishwasher. We brought over the refrigerator that I did at my previous house that we had an assessment at. One of the things that I continuously see is my energy efficient bill will come in, and there'll also be a thing is you, the average, and your neighbors, and I'm below it. So I outfitted a lot of things in the house, the insulation, the lights, and I make sure that when I leave the room and we're not using it, that we turn the light off. And that's a very important matter that we do. I know that a lot of the buildings around here of motion sensors and timers that shut off, which we did at the new city hall next door. So, thank you.
Okay. Moving along, next question we'll go to first to Anne. Research shows that increased parking availability increases traffic, pollution, and the cost of housing, and decreases walkability. Despite this, the City Council recently increased the number of parking spaces required for new residential construction. Since that vote, a new study by MAPC, it's called Perfect Fit Parking, shows that 30% of residential parking spaces in the Boston area go unused. Did the council make a mistake by increasing the parking requirements, and would you now vote to reduce them?
Thank you for this question. So a lot of thought went into that when it came to this, and I know it's going to disappoint people for me to say this, but Boston actually put in a residential parking all over the city before they actually decreased it to the level that they decreased it to. The city of Quincy has gone through an enormous change with all of the building that we've had in the city, and the developers are the one who are making out on this situation because they do not have to have enough parking for the people who are coming and living in those spaces. And those parking are going into our neighborhoods. Because we do not have a parking ban throughout the whole city of Quincy residential parking program, what we're seeing is abuse in our neighborhoods. And until we actually rectify that, it's very hard for us to turn that formula around. So what we really need to do is have an active participating plan from the city of Quincy, from the administration. These are things that we can try to do on the council level, but the administration has to be actively involved in this particular thing. But it seems to be more actively involved in the development or the developers rather than the neighborhoods of the city of Quincy. And until we actively take care of this issue, then making it so that it's less parking for the people that are moving into these high rises are actually hurting the livelihoods of people in the neighborhood. So we really have to balance those two things out, and when we do, we can actually go back to that and make sure that our city's walkable. Right now, it's just dangerous for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the reason behind increasing the threshold for parking spaces for the residential construction, I think the reason for that was to curb the residential development and not have these buildings, on top of each other. There's now more space in between for the parking spaces. I think parking it impacts the environment mostly when it comes to public parking, especially right here in Quincy Center. Oftentimes you have to drive around 10, 15 minutes to find a parking space, and it impacts the parking. Something else that we can do is the shuttle service that the MBTA ran between the red line stations during the Wallaston closure. I heard from some residents that they liked it so much that they would be interested in seeing that continued and possibly having that be a permanent service, and they think it'll cut down on people using their cars just to get from one section of the city or the other to the other.
So just hearing this information and learning about it, I recommend that Quincy commissions a follow-up study based on the MAPC study. Well, because it's contradictory. I mean, they added more parking spaces so people can get in and out to the retail and their new building, but if it's working against us, then just, bring all the facts together and make a new assessment.
Over the last 6 years, I've been an elected official. I've walked the streets. I'm down actually 28 pounds right now, walking through the summer. And I've beaten my mark of 25 every time. Traffic and overdevelopment are the top two concerns and issues throughout the city. What we did as a group, what we did as a council was an 8-0 vote, was trying to scale down these developments in our residential neighborhoods. It's happening right over here in Newcomb Street, and they're happening throughout the city. It's my number one thing when I walk up into the porch. There's too much traffic here. What are you going to do about it at the city council level? Well, we're just trying to get around this housing boom. This is a boom right now of development. We're trying to minimize it a little bit. They want to jam in 60 units sometimes. We could probably settle for 35. We just have to be careful with this overdevelopment. We have to keep up with our infrastructure improvements to go alongside these developments. So the parking situation, I know it might have contradict what you view it as, but remember, I walk the city all the time, and those are the two main concerns that I hear the last 6 years of walking it, and we had to address it, and we did as a council. 8-0 vote. Thank you.
This next question is about buildings. If you would endorse that, what would you do as a counselor to encourage the adoption of a net zero standard for new city buildings? For anyone who might not endorse net zero, what would you consider to be a reasonable standard for new construction, given that it is much easier and more cost effective to make new buildings energy efficient than it is to retrofit older buildings?
Yes, I support net zero, and I think that in the coming years we have 2 city public buildings that are most likely going to be torn down and rebuilt: the public safety complex that we mentioned earlier, as well as the Squantum Elementary School. So those are 2 perfect examples where we need to apply energy efficient concepts. And I think that when the architects, the engineers, the designers, when they're giving updates to the city council, whoever is serving on the city council next year, definitely needs to be asking these questions. Can we get to net zero? And if not, what are some of the things we can do to at least be as energy efficient as we can? And the council, as far as the cost, the council, as well as the city, the administration, needs to be aggressively pursuing any grants, state, federal, that would be applicable in those situations. Thank you.
I absolutely support this, and this should be adopted into law. It sounds like a winning standard to uphold, and I am definitely looking forward to learning about the whole standard program. Thank you.
I would support this. The reason being is there's going to be a residual emissions. There's going to be a little bit left if you go zero. So just in the O'Connell building that's being built right across from the courthouse right now, we had some conditions to make sure that they had open space and a park out front, and they maintained it with the proper trees. And this will absorb a lot of the CO2 in the atmosphere. So we can put conditions in there based on the development, not only inside the building, but outside the building. We need to use skilled labor, whether it be union or non-union, they have to be skilled. And, on the city council with Joe Finn, before he had left, we put and initiated ordinance changes on, the underground economy and having the proper oversight for making sure that these people should be on the job sites that are actually getting an actual ADP check, and they have the proper, the subcontractors are properly on these job sites. So that's an oversight that we did and initiated back in 2016 with also Councilor Brian Palmucci. The 3 of us worked together on the oversight committee. So we need to have skilled labor, and I do support this net zero. Thank you.
Yes, I would support a net zero standard, and I think it's something that we should hold ourselves to as a standard. 3.5 years ago now, one of the first things I did on the council was to write an ordinance essentially changing how projects in public land downtown get approved, making it so that the city council could be a voice for each of those projects. Similarly to capital improvements that are happening now in public buildings, we as your councilors have an ability to not just approve funding for these changes that need to happen, but putting in conditions for what it is that we want to see when this happens. Right now, we're in the midst of a 5-year capital improvement plan to overhaul the public buildings that we have here in the city. And in that process, we have a say and we have a voice in saying, these are the standards that we want to hit, and these are the goals that we need to measure them by. We need to see what the emissions are right now for the existing buildings. Do we need to cycle out old machinery and old supplies that aren't energy efficient and roll in new ones? In the long term, that's going to save us money, and we have the ability to dictate that when these new buildings come online. So I think it is a great standard. I think it's something that we should implement, not just for municipal buildings, but for private development buildings as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So net zero is something that we should absolutely make our goal to go to. But we have to also do other things in the city of Quincy as well. So anything that's new buildings, we should be putting that as a requirement. It may actually get cost affected out because it might be too expensive to do, but we should at least be going for LEED certified and platinum. We should not be just taking the standards of these things. But the other thing that we have to do in the city of Quincy that we don't do, at least that we have not seen at the city council, is we do not have a building energy report for each building. So we do not know exactly where we're falling down. And if we did have that, and we were able to do that, we could also put into a ordinance that any building over 35,000 square feet or 35 units would also have to, this would go back to recycling or any of those things. We could put some mandates into those things where we could actually make it so that it's required for those buildings to be able to maintain certain standards when it comes to green efficiencies. But the net zero building, when it comes to the new police station and also Squantum, it's something that we should definitely and absolutely look into. But we have to make sure that we're being able to afford to do that, because we are living in the Northeast as opposed to out in the South, where south area would be much easier to be able to do. But we have a lot of things that we have to do here in the city of Quincy, and I would start with that building energy report to understand exactly what our inventory is, so that we can start actually being more efficient about how we go about changing the things we have in the city of Quincy. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.